Good morning. This is Bob Passy again. After a few months of R&R and a chance to rethink what's going on and what is the best way to approach the issues and the problems of what's happening in this country. After looking at it for a while and forgetting about it for a while and taking a fresh look at it now, my conclusions are not all that different than they were before. Today I'd like to talk a little bit about how we are basically on the wrong path. We're fighting a fight they want us to fight and not being as focused as we could if we think about what our ultimate goal is. I would say that our ultimate goal is to return this nation to a democracy again. The hugest, most directly difficult problem is the domination of an economic elite. And they have all the power and all the levers of power pretty much under the control, and they have sort of walled themselves in behind a pretty much impenetrable wall, setting in their narrative what are the particulars of what their politics should be like and how we should all operate within that system. And part of how they've defined the rest of the citizens is if they want to change the system, then they just have to vote us out and put in somebody else. That we all know is not going to happen. They control too much of the politics, and money buys too many of the elections and is too dominant in too many ways. So we've kind of they have taken the heart of democracy out of this nation and replaced it with a kind of cash register. And the circulatory system is not the cooperation or the concern for human beings that a democracy needs, but a concern for profits and money. Their primary goal is to make sure that the circulation of that money continues, especially circulating from our pockets into theirs, so they continue to amass more and more wealth at our expense. But we need to be smart about how we go at this. They want us to operate within a system that they have defined as a competitive system, that if you want something, you have to fight for it. Well, we kind of know that's not true. We've had a democracy for years in this country, and taking care of each other is not something you had to fight for, except maybe countries that wanted to dominate us and turn us away from a democracy. So what we want to do is to get back to a democracy. That's our goal. And so we have to not play their game in their arena by their rules. We have to begin to simply disengage for a while. We need to step back and say, okay, what is it we really want? The answer, I think, is democracy. What is the best way to get it? Do we have to take the system that they have created, this kind of corrupt and perverted kind of system, and fix it? Well, they have made it almost impossible to change or fix that system. So we have to walk away and go back to a system that we know worked for centuries in this nation, and that's democracy. It wasn't perfect, but it wasn't an oligarchy. It allowed the voices of the individual citizens to be heard. Decisions were not made in terms of just money and the billionaires that are running things, but they were made by having an opportunity to see what the people want. Right now, almost nothing that most of the population wants gets enacted. In fact, almost the opposite of that is what's happening. So it's like a problem-solving issue. The problem is not the issues that we're dealing with, like ecology or income inequality or voter registration or any of those things. It's about a system that is just totally unwieldy. It's a dying system, as a matter of fact. And we need to walk away from that and walk toward a system we know, which is democracy. Go back home in a way. So we need to disengage and stop all the anger and the fighting and step back and say, what is it we want to accomplish? What are the resources we have? And how can we use those resources to accomplish what we want to accomplish? Well, what we want to accomplish is democracy again. The resources we have is the will of the people. We have, I mean, the 99% and the 1% is not a totally accurate indication, but there are huge numbers of people that would much prefer to have a democracy, and they know that if we had a democracy, so many of these issues that are left unresolved would become resolved, or at least we would have a way to resolve them. Income inequality would pretty much disappear because we would have a system where people are judged as being citizens first and not on the basis of their wealth. So we just need to sit down and say, okay, so what are the advantages we have? Okay, they have the money. That's okay. You don't have to have money to get anything done. We have the political will and we have the numbers. Sometimes I've said when I speak to people is if there was some magical way I could clap my hands and have everybody in this nation hear what I'm saying, and I could say to them, if you believe that democracy is better than an economic oligarchy, would you please get up out of your chair and go out and stand in the road? That's all you have to do. Just go out your door and stand in the road. How many people do you think would do that? Well, we all know. It's an incredible majority of people would do that. And somebody might say, well, so what does that mean? Well, that means that we would look around and we'd say, oh my God, I'm not alone. We have all of these people who want the same thing that I do. We would begin to recognize the incredible power of numbers and that unity. The other thing that would happen is two things. One is the politicians would say, whoa, that's a lot of people. And politicians know how to count, and many of them would say, well, maybe this democracy thing is not totally bad. And the 1% that didn't get out of their chairs would look at their windows and say, oh, are we in trouble? So we have to redefine, we have to take a different path. We get to choose the path. They don't get to choose it for us. We get to choose the path we want. We get to use the resources that we have at our disposal. We get to make choices. We get to walk away from their different definitions of what we are supposed to be doing and how we're supposed to be doing it, and walk away from their narrative that says economics is the answer to everything, and if you don't have economic answers, you don't have anything. We all know that's not true. So it's about us choosing a different path and choosing to begin that journey on that path. Thank you. We'll talk again later. Bye now.